Hello and welcome back to Coins Hunter USA, the place where we uncover the hidden treasures in American pocket change and explore the stories behind rare and valuable coins. If you love learning about US coins, their history, and the incredible prices they can reach, you've come to the right spot. In today's video, we're shining the spotlight on one of the most iconic pieces of American currency, the Washington quarter coin. At first glance, it may look like just another coin you use every day, but some Washington quarters hold secrets that make them worth far more than 25 cents. From rare minting errors to coins preserved in flawless condition, these quarters can be true gems for collectors. So sit back, listen carefully, and enjoy as we dive into the fascinating world of the Washington quarter, and by the end, you'll see why this coin is so much more than just spare change. Top 1. Today we're traveling back to the year 1986 to talk about the Washington quarter, a coin most people see as just 25 cents, but for collectors, certain examples from that year can be worth absolutely astonishing amounts of money. At first glance, a 1986 quarter doesn't look unusual. It carries the same design that Americans had been familiar with for decades. On the front, George Washington's proud profile, the word liberty above, and in God we trust by his side. On the back, the majestic eagle with spread wings, holding arrows and olive branches, a symbol of America's strength and balance between war and peace. This design by John Flanagan had been around since 1932, and by the 1980s, it had become a classic. But here's the thing, while billions of quarters were minted in 1986 at Philadelphia and Denver, and they circulated across the country in massive numbers, only a tiny fraction of them have survived in a way that makes collectors' hearts race. To most people, these coins are still just pocket change. To coin lovers, however, they're a chance to hold history in their hands, and sometimes, to uncover a fortune. So what separates an ordinary 1986 quarter from one that can sell for thousands? It comes down to condition, rarity, and minting errors. Let's start with condition. Think about how most quarters are used. They go through vending machines, cash registers, they're dropped on sidewalks, scraped across counters, and passed around endlessly. After decades of circulation, most 1986 quarters are scratched, worn down, and dull. But every once in a while, a coin avoids all of that. Maybe someone tucked it away fresh from a bank roll, or maybe it sat untouched in a collection. These uncirculated coins, shining with their original mint luster, can already sell for much more than face value. Now, let's get into the really exciting part, mint errors. Mistakes at the mint are what make certain coins truly unique and incredibly valuable. One of the most eye-catching errors is the off-center strike. On these coins, the design is shifted to one side, leaving a blank crescent on the surface. If the date is still visible and the strike is dramatic, collectors will pay top dollar for these rare pieces. Then there's the double die error. Imagine looking at your coin and seeing the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust slightly doubled, almost like a shadow. This happens when the design is struck twice at different angles. On a 1986 quarter, a double die can transform an ordinary coin into one worth thousands. Wrong planchet errors are another incredible variety. Sometimes a quarter design is accidentally struck on a blank meant for a nickel, a dime, or even a foreign coin. The result looks strange, the size or metal doesn't match what it should be, and that rarity drives collectors wild. And let's not forget clipped planchets, where a curved piece of the coin is missing, almost as if someone took a bite out of it. Or die cracks, raised lines running across the coin caused by damage to the die. What looks like a flaw to most people is actually a treasure to a collector. Even proof coins from the San Francisco Mint in 1986, which were made with extra care for collectors, can hold impressive value if they survive in pristine, flawless condition. Every one of these factors, condition, rarity, error, adds up to something amazing. And the best part? These coins are still out there. They're hiding in old change jars, tucked into drawers, sitting in coin rolls waiting to be opened. That's the thrill of coin collecting. You never know when an ordinary piece of change will turn out to be extraordinary. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1986 quarters are only worth their face value, and even uncirculated ones may sell for just a few dollars, the rarest examples, those in top condition with dramatic mint errors, have shocked collectors by reaching prices as high as $87,000, yes, $87,000 for a single quarter from 1986. Just imagine finding one of these coins in your change and realizing it's worth more than a luxury car, more than a year's salary, maybe even more than you ever dreamed a little piece of pocket change could be. That's why collectors keep searching, and that's why you should always check your coins carefully. Because the next treasure might be sitting quietly in your pocket right now. Top 2 today, we're diving into the world of the 1988 Washington quarter, a coin that might look like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but for collectors and coin lovers, it can actually be worth a fortune. Stick with me until the end, because I'll be revealing just how much one of these rare quarters has sold for, and trust me, the number will absolutely blow your mind. Let's start with a little bit of history. The Washington quarter is one of the longest-running and most recognizable coins in American history. It was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington on his 200th birthday. The design by John Flanagan became a classic, Washington's dignified portrait on the front and a bold eagle with spread wings on the back. This design lasted for decades, and by the 1980s, the Washington quarter was a fixture in every American's life. Now, in 1988, the U.S. Mint was producing quarters in massive numbers at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Hundreds of millions of coins rolled off the presses. To the everyday person, these coins were just another piece of change for parking meters, vending machines, and laundry. But here's the truth that collectors know: even in high mintage years, hidden treasures exist. What separates a 25-cent coin from one worth thousands or even tens of thousands? It comes down to two big things: condition and rarity. Most 1988 quarters went through decades of circulation. They got scratched, dinged, worn down, and lost their sharp details. But every so often, one coin is pulled aside early and preserved. These uncirculated coins, with sharp edges, strong luster, and no signs of wear, can already sell for a good premium. The higher the grade, the higher the price, but condition is only the beginning. The real excitement comes when we talk about errors. Mint errors are like the wild cards of the coin world. They shouldn't exist, but when they do, collectors go crazy for them. And the 1988 Washington quarter has its fair share of error varieties that have made it one of the most interesting coins from that decade. For example, off-center strikes. These happen when the coin isn't properly aligned during minting, and the design ends up shifted, leaving a blank crescent of metal. The more dramatic the off-center strike, especially if the date is still visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. Another favorite among collectors is the double die error. With this variety, the design elements are impressed onto the coin twice at slightly different angles. That means you might see doubled letters in Liberty or In God We Trust, or even a doubled date. To the casual eye, it might look like a blur, but to a collector, it's pure gold. Then we have wrong planchet errors. Imagine a Washington quarter struck not on a quarter blank, but on a dime planchet or even a foreign coin blank. Suddenly, the coin looks smaller, lighter, or made of a different metal entirely. These oddballs are extremely rare and highly desirable, because they represent a mistake that slipped through the cracks of the mint. There are also clipped planchets, where a curved portion of the coin is missing, giving it a bitten appearance. Far from being damaged, these are genuine mint errors and very collectible. Add to that die cracks, cuds, and other small flaws from worn-out equipment, and you've got an entire category of error coins that make the 1988 quarter so fascinating to study and collect. Proof coins deserve a mention too. The San Francisco Mint struck beautiful proof quarters in 1988 with mirror-like finishes, intended for collectors. While they're not rare in general, a proof quarter with an unusual error or in flawless deep cameo condition can also bring serious money. Now let's step back for a moment and think about this. Millions of 1988 quarters are still out there. Most of them are just regular coins worth 25 cents, but hiding among them are rare survivors, coins in perfect condition, coins with dramatic errors, coins that tell a story of how they slipped through the mint's strict quality checks. And because these coins are still floating around in circulation or sitting unnoticed in coin jars and drawers, you could stumble across one without even realizing it. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every coin you check is a potential treasure. Collectors are drawn to the 1988 quarter because it combines history, artistry, and the thrill of rarity. George Washington's portrait, the proud eagle, the enduring design, all of it reminds us of a piece of American history that we carry in our pockets every day. But for those lucky enough to find the rare varieties, the story takes on a whole new level. Suddenly, that everyday quarter is transformed into a collector's dream, and now, the part you've been waiting for, the value reveal. While most 1988 Washington quarters will only ever be worth face value, and even nice uncirculated examples might only sell for a few dollars, there are those rare, dramatic era coins in pristine condition that change everything. Some of these coins have stunned collectors and auction houses by selling for as much as $87,000, yes, you heard that right. $87,000 for a single Washington quarter from 1988. Imagine finding one of those in a roll of quarters or in your change after buying a cup of coffee. It's the kind of story every collector dreams about. So the next time you have some loose change in your hand, don't just toss it aside. Take a moment, look closely, and see if your coin has a story to tell. Because you never know, what looks like an ordinary quarter could actually be worth a life-changing amount. Top 3. We're talking about a coin that most people overlook every single day, the 1990 Washington quarter. At face value, it's just 25 cents. You've probably seen hundreds of them in your lifetime, used them in vending machines, dropped them into parking meters, or even tossed them into that coin jar sitting on the kitchen counter. But here's the twist, some of these quarters aren't ordinary at all. Some of them are so rare and so valuable that they can change the way you look at your spare change forever. Stick with me, because in this video, we'll uncover why the 1990 quarter is worth a second look, what mistakes and errors make it so special, and at the end, I'll tell you exactly how much one of these rare quarters has been valued at. Spoiler alert, it's not pocket change. Now, let's rewind the story a little. The Washington quarter was first introduced back in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The U.S. Mint wanted a design that would honor the nation's first president, a figure who symbolized leadership, courage, and unity. John Flanagan design, with Washington's proud profile on the obverse and the bold eagle on the reverse, was chosen, and it became a staple of American currency for decades. Fast forward to 1990. By this point, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for nearly 60 years. Billions of quarters had been minted. To the average person, the design was so familiar it barely got a glance. Washington's face on the front, the eagle on the back, simple, reliable, ordinary. But collectors know better. Because even in a sea of billions of coins, a tiny number can turn out to be treasures. Let's start with the basics. Condition. When a coin is freshly struck, it has sharp details, clear lines, and a beautiful shine called mint luster. But the moment it enters circulation, that beauty starts to fade. Coins rub against each other, get dropped, get scraped in machines, and slowly lose their sharpness. Most 1990 quarters today look worn, dull, and tired from over 30 years of use. But once in a while, a coin survives untouched, tucked away in a roll, or forgotten in a collection. When you find a 1990 quarter in pristine, uncirculated condition, it's already far more valuable than the one in your pocket, but the real magic, the real excitement, comes from the minting errors. This is where things get fascinating. The U.S. Mint, despite its precision, is not perfect. And every so often, a mistake slips through. These mistakes create coins that are one of a kind, and collectors go absolutely crazy for them. One of the most sought-after errors is the off-center strike. Picture this: a blank planchet, the metal disc that becomes a coin, is fed into the machine slightly out of place. The result? The design is shifted off-center, sometimes just a little, sometimes dramatically. Imagine a quarter with half the eagle missing, or Washington's face shifted over to the edge. The more dramatic the error, and the clearer the date, the higher the value. A dramatic off-center 1990 quarter in mint condition can fetch thousands on its own. Another famous error is the doubled die. This happens when the die, the tool used to stamp the design, imprints the coin with a slightly doubled image. To the untrained eye, it looks like a blur. But look closer and you'll see the doubling in the words, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or even in the numbers of the date. This doubling is not damage, it's part of the coin itself. And collectors treasure these doubled dies because they're rare and visually striking. Then we have wrong planchet errors. This is when a quarter design accidentally gets struck on a blank meant for another denomination, like a nickel or even a foreign coin. Imagine holding a quarter that's the size of a dime, with a design that doesn't quite fit. It's bizarre, it's rare, and it's worth a fortune. There are also clipped planchets, where a small crescent-shaped piece is missing from the edge of the coin, and die cracks, where raised lines appear on the coin because the die itself was damaged. Every one of these oddities turns an ordinary coin into something special. Now, here's the best part. Most people never check their quarters. They spend them without a second thought. And that means that treasures are still out there, hiding in change jars, bank rolls, and even in your pocket right now. Collectors live for that thrill, the chance that an ordinary-looking coin might actually be worth thousands of dollars. Think about it, a 1990 quarter is more than just a piece of metal. It's a little time capsule from the early 90s, a decade of big changes, both in America and around the world. And if that time capsule happens to carry an error or survive in perfect condition, its story becomes far more valuable than 25 cents. So now, the big question. What's the value? Most 1990 quarters are worth just face value, 25 cents. A clean, uncirculated one might bring in a few dollars. An error coin might bring in a few hundred or even a few thousand, depending on its rarity and condition. But the most extraordinary examples, the rarest of the rare, have stunned collectors and reached unbelievable prices, and this is the number you've been waiting for. A 1990 Washington quarter, in perfect condition, with the right rare error, has been valued at an astonishing $72,000, yes, $72,000. For a single quarter. Something most people wouldn't even bother to bend down and pick up off the ground. That's the beauty of coin collecting. It teaches us that history, rarity, and a little bit of luck can transform the smallest objects into treasures. So the next time you come across a quarter, don't ignore it. Check the date, look for errors, examine the details. Because who knows? That 25 cents could actually be worth a life-changing sum. Top 4 if you enjoy treasure hunting, or if you're just curious about how everyday objects can turn into life-changing treasures, you're going to love today's story. Because we're looking at the 1991 Washington quarter, a coin so common that most people wouldn't even stop to pick it up off the ground. But as collectors know, sometimes the coins we ignore are the ones hiding the biggest surprises. Now, at face value, a quarter is just 25 cents. You drop it into a vending machine, you slide it into a parking meter, maybe you flip it to make a decision. But what if I told you that certain quarters from 1991 are worth thousands of dollars, and in one astonishing case, as much as $52,000? That's right, the coin you might have used to buy gum 30 years ago could actually be a small fortune today. But let's start at the beginning. The Washington quarter was introduced in 1932, during the Great Depression, as a way to honor George Washington on the 200th anniversary of his birth. Designed by John Flanagan, it showed Washington's bold profile on the front with the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," while the reverse featured a powerful eagle clutching arrows and olive branches. That design became a symbol of America itself, and it stayed on our quarters for more than 60 years. By the time we reached 1991, this design was a familiar sight to everyone. Quarters were everywhere, in pockets, purses, registers, and coin rolls. The Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck billions that year. To the average person, there was nothing special about them. But collectors know that's not the full story. Because hidden among those billions are rare pieces that stand out for one reason: condition, rarity, or error. Let's talk about condition first. Most 1991 quarters are worn down, with scratches and dull surfaces from decades of use. But a small number were never spent, coins pulled from rolls, kept in collections, or forgotten in drawers. These are the coins that survive in pristine, uncirculated condition, showing every tiny detail just as it was struck. A sharp, high-grade quarter from 1991 can already be worth far more than its face value, because collectors pay premiums for quality, but here's where it gets exciting: mint errors. These are the accidents, the oddities, the mistakes that turn an ordinary coin into something one of a kind. And the 1991 quarter has its share of them. One of the most dramatic is the off-center strike. Imagine a coin where the design isn't lined up properly, so part of Washington's head or part of the eagle is missing, replaced by a blank crescent of metal. The more off-center the strike, especially if the date is still fully visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. Then there's the double die error. This happens when the die imprints the design more than once at slightly different angles. On a 1991 quarter, this could show up as doubling in the letters of liberty, in the words "In God We Trust," or even in the numbers of the date itself. To most people it might look like a blur, but to a trained collector, it's a jackpot. Double die quarters can sell for thousands, depending on how clear and dramatic the doubling is. Another fascinating error is the wrong planchet strike. Every coin is supposed to be struck on the correct blank, but sometimes accidents happen. A 1991 quarter might be struck on a nickel-sized blank, or even on a foreign coin planchet. These mistakes are extremely rare, but when they do appear, they become prized possessions. We also see clipped planchet errors, where a piece of the coin is literally missing from the edge, leaving a curved bite-like mark. Or die cracks, where a damaged die leaves raised lines across the coin's surface. Even small imperfections like these can boost a coin's value, because they make it unique. Now think about this: billions of 1,991 quarters were minted, and most people have spent them without a thought. That means the rare ones are still out there, hidden in jars of change, sitting in dusty drawers, or sealed in old rolls of coins that haven't been opened for decades. And that's the thrill of collecting. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin might turn out to be a treasure. Let's also not forget proof coins. Proofs are specially made coins with mirror-like surfaces, struck with extra care for collectors. A 1991 S-proof quarter in perfect condition can fetch impressive prices, especially if it has unusual characteristics or if the minting process left an error behind. These aren't coins you'd find in circulation, but they remind us that every year the mint creates surprises collectors are still discovering decades later. Collectors chase coins like these not just for the money, but because each one tells a story. A 1991 quarter might seem like nothing, but when it has a rare error, it becomes a piece of minting history, a reminder that even in a system built for precision, mistakes happen, and those mistakes are what make collecting fun. And now we come to the big reveal, the part you've been waiting for. While most 1991 quarters are worth only their face value, and high-grade examples might bring in a few dollars, the rarest and most extraordinary pieces, the ones with dramatic mint errors in top condition, have shocked collectors by reaching values as high as $52,000, yes, $52,000 for a single Washington quarter. Think about that. A coin that most people would spend without even looking at could actually be worth more than a luxury car, more than a year's salary, more than many people ever imagine a quarter could be. That's why collectors like us keep looking. Because every time you check your change, every time you open a roll of coins, you have the chance to uncover history, and maybe, just maybe, uncover a fortune. So the next time you see a 1991 quarter, don't let it slip through your fingers. Study it closely. Check for doubling, check for off-center strikes, check its condition. Because the ordinary can sometimes turn out to be extraordinary. Top 5. It's amazing how something as small and ordinary as a quarter can hide such incredible secrets. Most of us spend them every day without even a glance, tossing them into vending machines or parking meters, but the truth is, a single coin can sometimes be worth far more than its face value. And today we're talking about one that could actually change the way you look at your pocket change forever. The 1994 Washington quarter. Now let's be honest. If you dump out your spare change right now and see a 1994 quarter sitting there, you probably wouldn't think twice. It's just a quarter, right? 25 cents, nothing more. But that's where the fun of coin collecting comes in. Because hidden among the billions of quarters struck that year are rare and unusual pieces that collectors will pay huge amounts of money for. And I do mean huge. Stick around until the end, because you're going to want to hear just how high the value can go. First, let's remind ourselves where this coin comes from. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, designed to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. John Flanagan design, showing Washington's bold profile on the front and the eagle with spread wings on the back, became a classic. By the mid-1990s, that design had been in circulation for decades, right up until the state quarter program kicked off in 1999. So in 1994, quarters were being minted by the hundreds of millions at Philadelphia and Denver, and to the average person they all looked the same. But not every coin that left the mint that year was truly ordinary. Condition is the first big factor. Think about how coins live their lives. They get dropped, scratched, scuffed, and carried through thousands of transactions. After 30 years, most 1994 quarters are dull, worn, and common. But a small number avoided that fate. Maybe they were pulled from fresh rolls at the bank, maybe they were saved by collectors right away, or maybe they just sat in a drawer untouched for decades. These uncirculated pieces, with sharp detail and original mint shine, already stand out to collectors and can fetch much more than pocket change, but the real magic, the real money, comes when you start talking about mint errors. And believe me, the 1994 quarter has some fascinating ones. One of the most dramatic is the off-center strike. Imagine a coin where the design isn't lined up properly, so part of Washington's face is shifted to the side, leaving a blank crescent of metal showing. The more off-center the strike, the more valuable it becomes, as long as the date is still visible. That little mistake at the mint suddenly turns a plain coin into a rare collectible, then you've got double die errors. These happen when the die impresses the design onto the coin more than once at a slightly different angle. Look closely at a double die quarter and you'll notice the words Liberty or In God We Trust looking almost like they're shadowed or blurred. Sometimes the numbers in the date show doubling too. These aren't just curiosities, they're the kind of mistakes that collectors chase after because each one is like a fingerprint, totally unique. Another type that really excites people is the wrong planchet error. Every quarter should be struck on a quarter blank, but every once in a while, a blank meant for a nickel, a dime, or even a foreign coin ends up under the press. The result is a quarter-size design on the wrong metal or wrong size blank, and that makes for a coin that is instantly unusual and incredibly valuable. Don't forget clipped planchet coins either. These are the ones where the coin is missing a curved section, like someone took a bite right out of it. Far from making the coin worthless, this type of mistake makes it one of a kind. Add in things like die cracks, raised lines caused by damage to the die, and you've got a whole world of quirky, fascinating errors that make certain 1994 quarters extremely collectible. And of course, there are proof coins. In 1994, the San Francisco Mint struck special proof quarters with mirror-like surfaces, made especially for collectors. If one of these survives today in flawless condition, or even better, with some sort of error or variation, it can be worth far more than you'd expect. The beauty of all this is that these treasures are out there right now. They're not locked away in museums or hidden in some vault. They're sitting in people's homes, in old coffee cans full of coins, in dusty jars on a shelf, or tucked into rolls at the bank waiting to be opened. Every coin you check could be the one. That's the excitement of the hunt, and that's why coin collecting never gets old. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. Most 1994 quarters are worth exactly what they say, 25 cents. A nice uncirculated one might bring in a few dollars. But the rarest of the rare, those in perfect condition with dramatic mint errors, have shocked collectors by selling for as much as $78,000, yes, $78,000 for a single Washington quarter from 1994. Just imagine holding a coin that looks like pocket change, only to discover it's worth more than a brand new luxury car. That's the thrill of coin collecting. That's why we look so carefully at the coins that pass through our hands every day. Because you never know which one might be the hidden treasure. So the next time you spot a 1994 quarter, don't just toss it aside. Take a good look. Check for doubling, look for off-center strikes, study the condition. Because that little piece of change might just be worth a fortune. That if you enjoyed this deep dive into the story of the 1994 Washington quarter, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you never miss out on our next hunt for hidden treasures. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, happy collecting.